Udat, today is your first class, but otherwise it will be our third class for A2 economics. But what I do in my all of my classes is that I make students recall or recap what we did in the last class, right? So you don't need to worry if you miss out on any classes. That will be perfectly fine because we'll do a quick recap and then move forward. Okay. Now the first topic of A2 economics is, just give me a second. The first topic of A2 economics is economic efficiency, right? So we have already studied economic efficiency for the last two classes, but we will quickly recap and then move forward from there. What is economic efficiency, right? The first thing that you need to know, what is economic efficiency? And then we'll talk about that why is efficiency important in economics, right? So economic efficiency is, as we refer to the word efficiency in normal language, it means using something to the best possible, right? Making most use of something, making best possible use of something, right? So this is the word efficiency as we define in normal English language, making best use of something. But when we talk about economic efficiency, obviously we mean resources, right? Because what is one thing that is limited in economics, right? So in economics, we talked about, if you remember the very first lecture of AS economics, we talked about this issue that all countries face, which is basic economic problem. Basic economic problem says you have limited resources, unlimited wants, right? So this means that you can't produce everything that you need, right? A country cannot ever produce everything that it needs. So it needs to make a choice, right? Do you remember? We talked about this, right? So since basic economic problem or scarcity exist, right? That's why countries and individuals, people like you and me, have to make a choice. When we make a choice, there is opportunity cost, right? So this is something that is always true. There's basic economic problem, which forces us to make choice. We can't have everything. We have to make a choice between different things. And when we make a choice, some things are to be, we have to give up on few things. And those things are known as opportunity cost. So this is the entire concept of this, right? So basic economic problem, choice, and opportunity cost. Okay, now coming back to this thing. As I said, efficiency means making best possible use of something. The word economic efficiency means, so let's use the short form so that I don't have to write economic efficiency all the time. So EE, economic efficiency, refers to making best possible use of economic resources, or resources only. Refers to making best possible use of best possible use of economies, like a country. Economy, you already would know the meaning of economy. Making best possible use of economy's resources. That is what economic efficiency is. And why is that important? We've already discussed that efficiency is important because every country is faced with the problem of basic economic problem. Okay, now one thing I want you to do is, in case there is anything that you find confusing in any of my classes, I just want you to drop me a message, say something, right? Let me know that you haven't understood that part and I'll explain you that part all over again, right? Don't worry. Okay, but do let me know if you're understanding things or not, because otherwise I will have no way to tell. Okay, so economic efficiency refers to making best possible use of economy's resources. Okay, now the word best, have a look at this. If I say you should be the best in your school, even that is not very clear. What do we mean by best, right? It has to be specific. This term best has to be specific. It has to have a certain meaning, right? Are you getting what I'm trying to say, right? So that is why what we will do is that we will define economic efficiency in terms of two components. So if a country has economic efficiency, it will have these two components. If these two components are missing, this means a country is not economically efficient, right? What are these two components? Let's have a look at these, right? So economic efficiency has two components. If a country has economic efficiency, it will be both productively and allocatively efficient. So these are the two components of economic efficiency. So we define these as productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Okay. Now we'll talk about each one of these one by one, and then also look at the graphs. We'll look at the graphs and see whether, how we tell whether a country is productively efficient or not. Similarly, we have to tell whether a country is productively efficient or not. So for that, we rely on graphs. We look at the graphs and then tell if a country or a firm is efficient or not, right? Is this making sense, students? Is everything clear so far? Anything that's not clear, anything that is causing confusion. So we said economic efficiency means making best possible use of resources. Why is economic efficiency important? Economic efficiency is important because every country is faced with basic economic problem, which means it has limited resources and unlimited wants. When you have limited resources, you can't produce everything that you want. So what do you want? So what do you do then? So if you have limited income, your parents always give you limited pocket money, yes or no? So with limited pocket money, you can't have everything that you want. So you have to make good use of your money, yes or no? So limited resources and unlimited wants. So when anything is limited, you do not want to waste it. You want to use it to the full potential, right? So that is the reason why countries want to be economically efficient, right? Okay. Now what economic efficiency comprises of? It comprises of productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Now let's move forward and talk about each one of these one by one. So let's first talk about productive efficiency. The word productive, you might have come across this word productivity in your business class, right? Now, what is productive efficiency? Productive efficiency means maximizing. I will also write down the definition for you, so you don't need to worry about that. Productive efficiency means maximizing output against each unit of input. So how do we calculate that, right? We calculate productivity. If you remember, if you take your business studies, you would know that productivity is calculated as output, how many units of output you're producing, divided by the number of inputs that you're using for that, right? So output over input, this is your formula for productive efficiency, right? Now let's look at the definition so that you get a better idea. Okay, productive efficiency means PE refers to, productive efficiency refers to maximizing output against each unit of input. Maximizing output against each unit of input. Is this making sense or not? Against each unit of input, right? Have a look at this. So what is an input? You might be wondering what is an input, right? Because before this, we might not have used the word input in economics, but don't get it, don't get confused. Input means the resources. Do you remember we talked about the four factors of production, or four categories of resources, which were land, labor, capital, enterprise? So this is what input means. Input is anything that you're using to produce something, right? So if I have to give you a simple example, right now I'm using my time, I'm using my knowledge, and I'm using the tools, right, to produce this online class, to provide you this online class, right? So land, labor, capital, and enterprise, these are the four factors of production that you use to produce anything. And these are your inputs, resources. Is this making sense? Now, what is the definition of productive efficiency? Let's look at this one more time. Productive efficiency refers to maximizing output against each unit of input. So for each input that you use, you need to maximize your output. That is what productive efficiency is, right? Okay, now the easiest way to calculate whether a business is productively efficient or not, right? What do we do is that we divide the output that that business is producing with the inputs that the business employed, right? So let's say there are two online teaching platforms like Mega Lecture and some other platform. Let's say Mega Lecture has 100 students studying and we have a total of 10 teachers on board. On the other hand, the other business has 200 students on their classes, and they have 25 teachers who are teaching these 200 students, right? Now, output is already defined in terms of the number of students that you have, and input is also defined in terms of the teachers, right? Because teacher is what? Teacher is labor, right? Any human resource that you're using to produce something is known as labor. That's an input, right? Now, I want you to use this formula that I've written over here and tell me that which of the two businesses, business A or business B, which of the two businesses is more efficient? Which of the two businesses has more productive efficiency? Can you do that? Can you calculate which of the two businesses is more productive? Huda and Preet, can you do that? Quickly. So all you have to do in this question, you just need to divide the value of output with the value of input. right? Divide the value of output with the value of input, right? So let's do it together. So 100 divided by 10 is how much? 10. What does this show? This shows that you can teach 10 students per, each teacher can teach 10 students. Yes or no? Am I making sense? On the other hand, when you divide 200 by 25, so that would be 4 and 4, 8, right? So 8 students per teacher. So which of the two businesses do you think is more productive? Which of the two businesses is more productive? What do you think? Is A more productive or is B more productive? Right? What do you think? So let's say if you, right, A is more productive. Excellent, right? Is this making sense? Because in A, each teacher is teaching 10 subjects, whereas B is only teaching 8 students per teacher, right? Okay. Now you have to listen to this very carefully. Now, this is where it becomes a little complicated. Let's assume each teacher is paid same salary. Let's assume each teacher or every teacher in this country, Pakistan, India, whatever, every teacher is paid same salary, is paid same salary, right? In which case would the average total cost in which of the two businesses, either A or B, out of these two businesses, in which business the average total cost be lower, right? I'm sorry, Preet, you have to go over this all over again, but I'm sure this will not happen again. So in which of the two businesses is the average total cost lower? And you can tell me why? So let's assume every teacher is paid the same salary in this country, right? So let's say every teacher is paid $100, per day, right? So $100 per day, or let's say $1,000, right? If you calculate the total wage that A is paying, what is the total wage that A would be paying? Students, have a look at this. And do let me know if you feel confused at any point. So A had 10 teachers, right? And they would be paying how much? $1,000 per month. So that makes it how many dollars? $10,000. So the total salary that business A will be paying to its teachers will be $10,000. Is this making sense? Is this simple or is this complicated? Huda? On the other hand, business B is paying, has 2,500 teachers. So they are paying a total salary of $25,000 per month. Is this clear so far? Is this clear so far? If this is clear, then we'll move forward from here. So we are assuming that both schools or whatever it is, online teaching platform, are paying the same salary, same wages to their teachers, right? Very good. Excellent, right? Now, the total expense for A is how much? 10,000. How much is the total expense for B? 25,000. How do we know this? Because we assume that B has 25 teachers and A has 10 teachers. That was simple. That was easy, right? Now, before we move any forward, let's think about average total cost, right? Okay, let's put it down like this. What is average? You must have calculated average in your life and you would know what average is. If I say, what are your average marks in your class assignments, right? So what you do is, let's say you have taken 5 class assignments and every assignment was out of 100 marks. So what you will do is that you will first of all total the marks that you have obtained in these 5 assignments. So let's say on the first one you got 75, on the second one you got 85, on the third one you got 80, on the fourth one you got 70, and in the last one you got 60. So you will add up the marks on the 5 assessments and then divide it by the number of assessments, number of tests, or number of quizzes, right? That will give you your average score. That will give you your average score. So in this case, if you want me to calculate the average score, so 80 plus 70 plus 85 plus 70 plus 60 divided by 5, that gives you 74 marks. So on average, on every assignment, you scored 74 marks. Is this making sense? Now, same is the concept of average total cost. So we want to find that what is the average cost of producing a unit of the good? What is the average cost of teaching a kid, right? For both the businesses, we want to calculate the average cost of teaching a student, right? So what we do for this is we divide the total cost of the business with the total output. We divide the total cost of a business with the total output. Is this making sense or not? Is this making sense, Huda? Right? So you divide the total cost of a business with the total output, right? Now what we need to do, perfect, right? Now what we need to do, what was the total cost in the case of A? 10,000. And against 10,000, they were teaching how many students? They were teaching how many students? Total of 100 students, right? That was their output, right? In the case of B, the total cost, the total salary that they're paying to the teachers, $25,000, and the total output that they have is 200 students. Now, I'm just applying this formula. Nothing complicated. So total cost is in the numerator, right? So for A, the total cost was 10,000 and the total output, like the number of students that A has, is 100, right? So we divide that. Similarly, in the case of B, the total cost of teaching 25 students is $25,000 and the total number of students that they have is 200, right? Now 10,000 divided by 100 gives you how much? $100. So to teach each student in firm A, it costs you $100 per student. It costs you $100 per student. And when you do this simplification, it turns out to be 1, 1, 2 ones are 2, 2 and 5. $125 per student. So in which of the two businesses is the average cost higher? Absolutely, very good. In which of the two businesses is average cost higher? You can clearly see from the calculation that B has higher average total cost. Why? Because B is less efficient compared to A. That is the reason. Let me get rid of these extra things here. So that is the reason why the average cost of B is higher compared to A, because B was less efficient. B was less efficient. So what was the purpose of doing this entire calculation? What was the purpose of this, right? So the purpose was to tell you that a business with lowest average total cost is the most productive. Now, is this making sense to you? Right? So what we said what we showed through this calculation, that a business with the lowest average total cost is the most productive. Right? So how do we tell whether a business is productively efficient or not? We tell by looking at its average total cost. By looking at a business average total cost, we can tell whether a business is efficient or not. This is making sense, right? So a business which has lowest average total cost, that is the most efficient business. That is what we proved through all this calculation. Okay, now how do we show this on a graph? Now let's move forward and let's see how to show productive efficiency on a graph. Is making sense? How to show productive efficiency on a graph. Okay, now have a look at this. So what you have to do, you have to make a simple normal graph, right? Then you will do it like this, right? So on the y-axis, you will have average total cost. So the short form of ATC, the short form of average total cost is ATC, right? And on the x-axis, you will have the output or the quantity, the output in terms of units that a business is producing. Now, listen to this carefully. At any point in time, and what's the shape? Okay, now you might be getting confused that why is ATC U-shaped, right? So this is something that is part of our A2 economics syllabus, and we'll talk about this when we move to unit 2. But right now, we will not go in the detail of this, right? So this is definitely part of our syllabus, but we'll not talk about this right now. We'll wait for unit 2, where we will explore that why is ATC U-shaped, right? Okay, now let's say this is ATC 1 that I've drawn, the orange one. Then you have ATC 2, which is the green color, and then you have ATC 3, which is blue color, right? Okay, is this making sense? So I tried to make parallel curves, but these might not be parallel. So I'm sorry about that if this is not parallel. Okay, so think about this, students. Out of these three ATC, which ATC is most productive? Out of these three ATCs, which ATC is most productive, right? So the ATC which is the lowest of the three, the ATC which is the lowest of the three, which is this blue ATC, that is the most productive ATC to operate on. Why? Because have a look at this. Because the thing is fairly simple. If I choose any random quantity, right? So let's say I want to produce Q1. The business says it wants to produce a quantity of Q1, which is, let's say, equal to 200 units. So it wants to produce Q1, which is equals to 200 units, right? So if you're operating on ATC3, which you can see, right? So let's say each unit will cost you 10. If you're producing on ATC2, right, you can see that it will cost you, each unit will cost you something more than 10, let's say 12. And if you're even operating on ATC1, each unit will cost you even more, let's say ATC, each unit is costing you $15, right? Now, what we learned out of this, what we got out of this is that, that ATC3 will always provide you the lowest cost combination. ATC3 will always provide you the lowest possible cost combination. Similarly, if you want to choose any other quantity, right? This should not be difficult to understand. If you choose any other quantity, Q2, ATC3 is lowest, ATC2 is higher, and then ATC1 is even higher, right? So out of these three ATC curves, ATC3 is most productively efficient. Any confusion so far, right? Since I've already done this with Preet, so I hope it's clear. But Preet, you're also more than welcome to ask me if there are any questions. Huda, is this making sense? Is this absolutely clear? If there is anything confusing, please ask me, right? Before we move forward. Okay, now let's get rid of these extra things and then we'll move forward from here, right? Okay. Okay. Now, if this is clear, perfect, very good. Okay. Now the question I will want to ask you, okay. Now these are different points on ATC3. I said ATC3 is most productive out of the three ATCs that I've drawn, but let's see another thing. So if you're operating on these three possible points, these, let's say 4 and 5, right? So if these are the 5 possible output levels, are all these points productively efficient? Or is only one of these points productively efficient? So my question to you is, are all of these points productively efficient? Or is it only one of the points which is productively efficient? Right. So since Preet already knows the answer, right? So Uda, can you make a guess and then let me know? Right. Are all of these points productively efficient? Right. Yes. The answer is no problem. The answer is all of them are productively efficient because all these points are on the lowest possible ATC curve. So all points on the lowest possible ATC curve are productively efficient, but C is most efficient of all these. Now, this might be sounding a little weird to you, but let me tell you how this works. So let's write this down, right? All points on lowest possible. Whether this is making sense, and I'll tell you why. All points on lowest possible ATC are productively efficient, but point C is most efficient of among all the points, right? Okay, now Have a look at this. So why did I say that all points on the lowest possible ADC are productively efficient? Okay, great. Have a look at this, right? What if a business wants to produce only this much quantity? Now think about this. You have to listen to this carefully. If a business only wants to produce Q1 quantity, then obviously it cannot produce at point C. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So if a business wants to produce Q1 quantity, which you can see for yourself, it's less than Q2. So then the three options available are either you can operate on point A, or you can operate on, let's say, point, I don't know, G, or you can operate on point F, right? You do not have the option of operating on point C because you only want to produce this much quantity, right? So out of these three possibilities, which one is most efficient? Obviously A. Similarly for B and C and D, E, right? So all points on the lowest possible ADC curve are productively efficient. But why is C most efficient of all? Because here the cost will be the lowest of all options. At point C, have a look at this again. At point C, the cost would be lowest of all the possible options. Out of all these possible options that a business has, you can see for yourself that C is the lowest of the all. It's the lowest cost point of all the options. Yes or no? Is it making sense? So all these different points that I've labeled over here, you can see for yourself that C is the lowest of all three. And that is why if you operate on point C, it is known as technical efficiency. If a firm is operating on point C, apart from being productively efficient, it is also known as X efficiency. Operating on point C, it is known as X efficiency, right? So this is the name that economists have given to this point. So it is also productively efficient, but there's an additional name that we use for this point, which is X efficiency. Are you both clear on this? So let's do a quick recap and then move forward, right? So we started our discussion by saying that economic efficiency comprises of two things, productive and allocative efficiency, right? Now, what is productive efficiency? Productive efficiency refers to maximizing output against each unit of input. That's why the formula is output over input. So output and divided by input is productive efficiency, right? Then we did some calculations to understand that what is the relationship between productive efficiency and average total cost. We said that when average total cost is lowest, your productive efficiency is highest, right? Is this making sense? That is what the calculation was showing us. When average total cost is lowest, productive efficiency is highest. Easy. Is this making sense? Productive efficiency is highest, right? So that's what we just discussed, right? Okay, now then the next thing that we wanted to understand that, right, a business with low average total cost is the most productively efficient, right? That's what we said. Okay, now how to show, right? How to show productive efficiency on a graph? How to show productive efficiency on a graph, right? That was the question that we were answering. So for that, what we said here is that if there are three possible ADC curves available to a country, ADC1, ADC2, and ADC3, if a country is operating on the lowest possible ADC curve, that is productively efficient. And if you are operating on the lowest point of the lowest ADC, I repeat myself, if you're operating on the lowest possible ADC curve, it is productively efficient. If we will continue the class, don't worry. Even after this, we'll continue the class. If a business is operating on the lowest possible ADC curve, it is productively efficient. So this one out of the three is productively efficient. We did talk about this. But if you are operating on the lowest point of the lowest ADC is this one, point C. If you're operating on the lowest point of the lowest ATC, there is another word for it, and that is known as X efficiency. So that is known as X efficiency. Any confusion so far? Anything that's not clear? All points in the lowest possible ADC curve. Let's let's be more specific, right? All points, all points on lowest possible ATC curve, all points on lowest possible ADC curve are productively efficient, but point C is most efficient amongst all the points. Second thing, if a firm is operating on point C, it is known as X efficiency. Easy, any confusion? Very good, excellent, right? Now, this being said, now we'll move on and we'll talk about allocative efficiency, right? So we did discuss what is productive efficiency. Now is the time to move on and talk about allocative efficiency, and then we will look at the graph. So what is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency is, where does the word come from? Just like productive efficiency was coming from the word productive. Productive is something that is efficient, right? Productive, output over input should be maximum. That is what it is. Now the word allocative is coming from the fact that it refers to the idea of allocation of resources. What does allocative refers to? Allocation of resources. If you remember, we talked about this in AS economics, that allocation of resources mean how you are, or how many resources you are spending for production of a certain good, right? Allocation of resources is basically quantity of resources spent on producing a certain product. Quantity. So if I say we should allocate more resources to education, now what we mean by that is that Pakistan should spend more resources on producing education because that is one area that we lack, right? Quantity of resources spent on producing a good. Easy? Is this making sense? Okay. Now, what does allocative efficiency mean then? Right? Can be a good or a service, right? Whenever we say good, we mean both good or a service, right? Okay. Quantity of resources spent on producing a good or service. That is allocation of resources. Now, the definition of allocative efficiency says, write this down first, and then I'll explain you. Allocative efficiency says producing goods that are most wanted or most needed, right? And I'll give you some examples for you to understand. Producing goods that are most wanted or most needed, and producing these products in the right quantities. Producing goods that are most wanted or needed, and producing these goods in the right quantities, right? So there are basically two parts to this, and producing these goods in the right quantities. Okay, now let's look at what this means. Okay, now as I was saying, that this definition technically has two parts to it, right? What are the two parts? Have a look at this. So producing goods that are most wanted, that is part A. That is one condition for allocative efficiency. The second condition is producing these goods in the right quantities. Now we need to define both these things. What do we mean most wanted or most needed, right? Now think about this. COVID is still there, but it's, settling down eventually because a lot of people got, what is that called? Vaccinated, right? Okay. Now the thing that you need to know